listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for spending some time with us today. It should be interesting. Of course, my name is Jerry Mitchell, and I'm being supervised tonight.
Yes, you are.
Closely. Oh, my goodness. As folks start to tune in whenever they choose to, we always take a couple minutes, and I remind you to check out the website and remind you about the books. Of course, Traditions of Truth, God's Universe, God's Rules, and Inheriting Lies. 3 books you need to have in your library. And I encourage you to buy 2 of each. Keep one, keep notes in it. Make sure that, you use it as a study guide, okay? The others you're going to give to your pastor because he needs them too, especially after tonight. We're going to talk about something tonight that actually needs a book. I'm not the one to write it. I'll just talk about it. But before I begin, I need to address something I saw in the news this week. And for the folks who don't live in the United States, this might surprise you as much as it did me. The state of Maryland, which surrounds our nation's capital, okay, there's a bill introduced that would exempt anyone under the age of 25 from being charged with capital murder, okay? Now, that sounds weird because we don't do that sort of thing. We charge people with capital murder, and we've even charged minors with it as well. We treat them as adults because the action that they took was basically an adult action. But the reason given that they want to do this, okay, and I'm sure that this comes out of the Baltimore area, the reason they want to do this is they claim that the brain of young people is not developed enough to understand the consequences of such an offense. That seems a little surprising to me. And here's my question. If a 24-year-old person cannot understand what it means to kill an innocent person, how in the world can a 3-year-old be old enough to understand what sex they want to be? Think about that. If somebody who's 24 years old enough to vote, old enough to buy tobacco and alcohol, old enough to be, 16-year-old enough to be pregnant, but at 12. But at 24, if you can't understand what it means to take an innocent life, how does a 3-year-old justify that? There is a absolute double standard from the left who want nothing more than to destroy humanity. That's all they're doing. Their attempt to dehumanize not only the sanctity of life, but to confuse the sexes is nothing more. It's nothing more than an attack on the Creator and his greatest creation, which is mankind. Now, I knew when I spoke about the sacrificial system the other day that was going to provoke some questions. And it did. So, and I knew I was going to have to address this. So I will. The sacrificial system was instituted because Moses begged the Creator not to destroy the mixed multitude that came out of Egypt. Now, I'm going to warn you, this is the Cliff Note version. Okay, you're getting the very condensed, the least I can do to give you the information, but you can go look this up. In fact, I suggest you do. We'd be here for the next 2 weeks if I gave you the long version. And I don't think anybody wants that. I try to keep this timely because I know a lot of people listen as they drive back and forth to work or to school or, doing other things. The sacrificial system was introduced because Moses begged. Don't wipe them out, right? We'll get into a little bit more of that later. But because that, God was angry. And he was willing to kill an entire group of people. The introduction of the sacrificial system in itself should serve as proof that our Creator chooses to find a way to maintain mankind and give us or offer us a way back to Him. So we're going to start by digging through some of the layers of tradition and man-made doctrine, misinterpretation. And the first thing we need to address is there's a huge difference between the offering and a sacrifice, although in today's English, the two are often used interchangeably, but they're different. An offering is something that is freely given, and it's given out of abundance. That abundance can be physical, such as an abundance of wealth, or it can be given out of love. And there is a really good example of that in Mark, as Myra reads part of that.
Jesus sat near the temple money box where people put their gifts. He watched the people put in their money. Many rich people gave large sums of money. Then a poor widow came and gave 2 very small copper coins. These coins were not worth even a penny. Jesus called his followers. He said, I tell you the truth. This poor widow gave only 2 small coins, but she really gave more than all those rich people. The rich have plenty. They gave only what they did not need. This woman is very poor. She gave all she had, and she needed that money to help her live. Mark chapter 12, verse 41 through 44.
Okay. So what we see is they were sitting in front of a money box, or the tzedakah box, the righteousness box, whatever you want to call it, and it's where people would give money to help the poor. It would be dispersed to the ones who needed it the most. The wealthy people would sometimes make a big show of giving, right? And they gave out of their abundance of wealth. They were financially well off, and they went up and they were proud that they could dump all this money in this box. The poor widow didn't have much, but she still had a desire to give. And she gives from her abundance of love. Now, I'm going to speculate here just a little bit that this woman more than likely did more than just give money, right? More than likely, she would offer her time and help others in any way that she could. She did the most that she was able to do for others. And that is a true offering. In Genesis 4:3, Abel makes an offering. It's not a burnt offering. It's not a sacrifice. And Strong's defines that particular word, it's Strong's number 4503, if you're keeping score, as a tribute or a gift or an offering. Now, in Genesis 4, there's no mention that the animals were killed, but the inference is that Abel brought the animals to display how well he had cared for them. Abel was actually showing the Creator that he loved not only the animals he cared for, but he loved the Creator as well. The whole event is much like a farm child. They would take their prize animal and show it to their grandfather, saying, "Look how well he's grown. Look at how good this animal has become." Isn't it just the prize of the herd, right? And this was done with love, which is why God was pleased with Abel's actions. But a sacrifice is much different. A sacrifice has a cost associated with it. It's something that is required. Now, many people think, they view taxes, right, as a sacrifice. Certainly they're required. And a lot of people might think that obedience is a sacrifice. It's required as well. But obedience should be our offering. It should be freely given out of an abundance of love. We need to ask why in Genesis 8:21, when Noah used some of the clean animals as a burnt offering, why does Jehovah say he smelled the sweet aroma of the offering and decided never to curse the ground for man's sake? And then we read in Isaiah 1:11, "What good to me is your multitude of sacrifices, says Jehovah. I'm full of burnt offerings of rams and the fat of well-fed cattle. I take no delight in the blood of bulls and lambs and goats." The difference is that Noah was obedient, and he made his offering for the love of the Father. In Isaiah, the people were disobedient, and they were treating the sacrifices as nothing more than a required obligation. They had forgotten the reasons for the sacrifices in the first place. They didn't remember why they were there. All they knew was, we got to do them. We have to do this. We have to bear this burden. This is something, it's so oppressive. We have to go do this. But the thing is, when the Almighty makes a sacrifice, when the Almighty calls for us to make a sacrifice, let me put it that way, it's done in such a way that it's always something we can afford. Always something we can afford. You need to remember that. So let's go back for a minute. Why did the Almighty put the sacrificial system? I can't talk tonight. Why did he start that to begin with? Let's go back to Mount Sinai just after the golden calf incident, and Myra's going to read part of that passage.
Now the next day Moses said to the people, "You have committed a great sin. Now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin." So Moses returned to the Lord and said, "Oh, what a great sin these people have committed. They have made gods of gold for themselves. Yet now, if you would only forgive their sin. But if not, please blot me out of the book that you have written." The Lord replied to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. Now go, lead the people to the place I describe. Behold, my angel shall go before you. But on the day I settle accounts, I will punish them for their sin." And the Lord sent a plague on the people because of what they had done with the calf that Aaron had made. Exodus 32, verse 30 through 35.
Now remember, Myra's reading from the International Children's Bible here. He's sending a plague because the people made the calf which Aaron had made. They sacrificed the gold earrings of the women and children to make this calf. The plague is not only the sacrificial system, it was actually the beginning of the Levitical priesthood. Did you realize that? In Exodus 19, the people were told, if you hear my words, obey my command, I will make you a nation of priests. The entire people group. It's not a political nation. It's a people group, okay? The entire people group who claim Jehovah as God, the creator of the universe, were to be his representatives on earth. But now there needed to be another group of people who could handle some things, right? Because of their sin, there would now be a priesthood within the nation to oversee not just the sacrificial system, they were to administrate the people. And practically from the beginning, the priesthood would become drunk. Remember Aaron's sons, they got drunk and they corrupted the temple worship. Later on, the priest would actually worship other gods. Now, I've said before that every time the Creator tries to make it easy for us, we do something to make it more difficult. And it's exactly what we did with the sacrificial system. The covenant that was confirmed at Mount Sinai, you can find that in Exodus 20 through 23, was confirmed with blood. That means that the one who breaks the covenant must die. The Creator didn't break the covenant. Mankind did. Therefore, we deserve death. But I'm not talking about the same kind of death that happens to us all sooner or later, right? It's not the physical death that we think about. It's something that's far more important. And what I'm talking about is what's known as the second or final death. It's found in Revelation, chapter 20. But it actually comes from Hosea chapter 13. When the Almighty is speaking, he says, I will ransom them from the power of Sheol, the place of the dead. I will redeem them from the grave. Where, O death, are your plagues? Where, O Sheol, the place of death, is your penalty? You see, the final death is actually the death of our spirit, not our soul. We're created as eternal beings, not terminal beings. We were designed to live on earth forever. But when Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, it began the process of aging and death. The Creator tells us he will make a new heaven and a new earth. And we will live there forever if we'll be obedient, if we hear his voice and we follow his instructions. The sacrificial system was put in place as a constant reminder that we should die, and we would not be part of that new earth. We would not be saved or rescued from the grave, but instead suffer in our eternal existence. The people forgot the reason the sacrificial system was put in place. They began to treat it as nothing more than a tax. It was required, and it was necessary, and it was burdensome. They lost their love for the Creator, and they lost their love for his instructions. Now, today, the separation between the people who want to reinstitute the sacrificial system and those who believe that Yeshua, Jesus, paid the required cost divides believers. In Inheriting Lies, I delve pretty deep into that biblical narrative. And I think I did a pretty good job. The people who have read it and let me know what they thought, they said I did anyway. So it's not just my opinion. It's the opinion of some of the readers. Now, you can either believe the biblical narrative, or you can continue to put your faith in man-made traditions, man-made doctrine that are empty and meaningless. That's completely up to you. Choice is yours. But either way, And I want you to understand this. You are still free to make the offerings, not the sacrifices, but the offerings to show your love for the Creator and each other out of an abundance of love. Not because you have to, because you want to. You don't have to give it all away. You give out of an abundance. That's what an offering is. And for the pastors who keep saying, dig deep, you're barking up the wrong tree, guys and gals. You don't understand what it's all about. This isn't a competition to see who can build the biggest church. It's not a competition to see who can get the most members. You're competing for something far greater. You're supposed to be competing not to see who can bring more people into the kingdom, but to reach as many people with one simple message as you can. You need to trust the Creator of the universe. You need to put your faith in Him and Him alone. That's the message you're supposed to be taking. That's the message that you were told to give. Anything else is man-made. Anything else is made up. When you give out of an abundance, it doesn't matter if it's money. It doesn't matter if it's your time. What matters is where it comes from. And I'm not talking about your bank account. Are you giving out of an abundance of love? The sacrificial system has been abandoned, along with the Levitical priesthood. Now, the Levitical priesthood was actually corrupted to a point where when they returned from Babylon, they'd pretty much let anybody in. All right? There were people from the tribes of Benjamin who were priests. There were people from the tribe of Judah who were priests, and other tribes as well. It had become corrupted, and it had been abandoned for quite some time. Gabriel told Daniel in chapter 9 there would be an event that would stop the sacrifices. Our Creator doesn't need the blood of animals or the smell of burning bread and oil. That's not what He's after. What He's after is our obedience. And you know, sometimes that's just a sacrifice that most of us are not willing to make. You need to stop and think about that one. Are you willing to sacrifice your sinful lifestyle and give your life back over to your Creator? What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to do? You know, in the military, they often talk about the ultimate sacrifice is giving your life. What sacrifice are you willing to give? Sometimes, you know, it's pretty easy for a soldier who is trained in the art of war to offer his life. It's very, very difficult for the average person to sacrifice their lifestyle. Are you willing to give the ultimate sacrifice back to your Creator? That's, you know, I'm not sure I can make it any simpler than that. So, that is the sacrificial system in a very, very, very quick nutshell. A very small dose. There's a lot more to it, and it's a lot more complex. But it's very simple in its complexity. So, hopefully that helps you understand why it was there and how it's necessary, or how it was necessary. But the sacrifice we need to make today costs a lot more, doesn't it? When you are willing to give up your lifestyle for his. Until Monday, many, many blessings.